Hey everyone, we made it. It's part 4 in the series, creating rolling liquid drum bass within Cubase. If you missed all the parts, you can go and check them again. This one's going to be about mixing and mastering. That's what I do. This is heavily requested. So many people have asked me about this one. So we're going to show you within Cubase 12 Pro, using only Cubase 12 Pro's instruments and toolset to get a really big sound within the box. So how you can get a sound that can cut through in the systems, whether it's rave, festivals, clubs, all that kind of stuff. Or how you can attack it for the streaming platforms, how you can actually follow their protocols, all within Cubase 12 Pro. So let's get to it.
So we made it. This is chapter 4, the final chapter of this particular series. If you missed any of it, you can go back and check it again on our channel. We're looking at mixing and mastering, that's what I do. So here's the track. There's nothing added on the master bus, no plugins populated or active. Everything's been done at the mix phase. So let's check it out where we're up to. So you get the idea. It's a rolling liquid drum and bass track. And again, if you want to know how we got to this point, you can go back and check the other episodes within this series. So here's a really cool tool within the edit channel window. This is in all edit channel windows within Cubase. This is the comparison tool. So we have a comparison channel where we can actually choose another window and see two at the same time, two frequencies at the same time. And we can see where they might be clashing, where they might fit, any problems that might need to be fixed at the mix stage. I find it really, really handy to be able to do that. So to quickly show you that, we have Groove Agent SE drum kit with a break layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, show me the drum kit that we mixed earlier in the chapters. And then I want it to be compared with the break layer. And if I press play, you should be able to see them roughly hitting the same sort of frequency ranges. And there you go. And that's exactly what I want to see. So they're kind of hitting the same, which means that from the off, the main crux of the beats, the main meat of this track, they're not really going to be clashing together. And then I can start building upon my kicks and my snares and then making pockets of space for all the different elements that fit. So I would always say the comparison channel is a great tool to be able to do that, to be able to pick out any problems, but also make sure things fit and sit within the mixing stage. So that's just a quick tip to show you. Okay, let's go on to our mastering chain. So first up in the chain is the compressor. For the last 20 odd years, I've always had hardware, so I've always put a compressor first on my mixes and my masters down the years. I would always say use the Cubase stock one here. It's great, it has great responses, it's very transparent, which is what you want. And I would always say maybe put it first in the chain as a personal preference because you want to control any transients, unruly transients that might be coming from the very, very start. And compressor will give you that control overall. You can go into the values, but I like to just keep it really light. Fast attack and a slower release here. So you have a fast attack because obviously it's a 175 beat per minute track. So you want it to really pick up the transients quickly, and then the release to give it the space. A really low ratio because you don't want it to be too aggressive. If it needs to be really compressed a bit more, you can use the threshold fader as that ceiling to bring it down to really control that. So what we're looking at here is the GR, which is the gain reduction, and that's just the amount of compression which is going to be active at this time, which will be dictated by the fader, the threshold fader, as we're going to show you now in an extreme example. An extreme example, that's too much. Literally just want to just take off the tops a tiny bit. Obviously the snare's quite loud and quite breaky, and that's what we want to just literally just slightly just tame that a little bit and give us that sort of safety net. And you want it so that when you DnB the processor, you don't hear much difference, and that's exactly what you want. So it's doing a sort of transparent compression. Obviously, if you use the coloured compressor, like our vintage compressor in here, for instance, that will add some sort of saturation and colour as well. But we kind of want this to be quite transparent for the mixing and mastering phase, because then we can add coloration later on. that's exactly what we want. So second in the chain, we have the frequency EQ. This is a really great EQ. It's really transparent. Second version of frequency. We can EQ by key. We have full dynamic capabilities to be able to do dynamic EQ. We can audition our frequency bands. We can cut and boost at extreme values without any real resonance or distortion. We have stereo, we have left and right, we have mid-side. It's a really, really powerful EQ. Again, on our channel, Dom's done some really cool videos on that as well. You can check out more about frequency too. So in this one, I'm literally going to boost out the elements within the mix that we want to push out in this drum and bass track. So 100 hertz is probably more or less the range for kind of drum and bass. Not all drum and bass, but for most, the kicks are kind of hitting around 100, snares hitting from around 200 to 250, and we're just going to boost them regions out. If I click the audition filter button, it means that I can then literally listen to exactly what I'm doing, like this. So I can search. So I can actually sweep through the frequency range and find out where issues might arise and what can be taken away, what might not be needed. So we'll look at that in a second. But right now we're looking just to boost the main sort of elements of the breaks, which is 100 hertz, for instance, for the kick. And our snare. So we're just going to take a little bit out there, just that region, that 400 hertz region. You can see there's nothing in there. You can hear nothing's in there. We can hear stuff that's not needed. Obviously, you don't want to overdo it. We're just literally going to make some space to give us a bit more clarity, a bit more headroom, a bit more loudness, and just tidy up the overall mix and master and eventual master. Now, all I want to do now is add some of that, the sort of rise, the sheens, the hi-hat, the percussion, pop more of that out, get more clarity with that. So between 5 and 10K is probably that region that we can pop out and get some brightness out. Again, with the filter on. And that's what we want to attack. So the great thing about frequency EQ is every single band has multiple options. So this is a stereo mode. Now I can go, okay, give me left and right mode. So what that means is I can then say, okay, I'm going to boost the left. And I say, okay, I want to boost the right. And so what that means is just between the 5 and 10K region, where all your sizzling and sort of sheen is, where, you know, I don't know, the aim and break, percussion, hi-hat, ride, cymbals, that sort of sharpness and sizzle, we can bring that out and open it a bit more without affecting the rest of the program material. So we can add just width within that region. I think that's what frequency EQ is really, really, really good for. Obviously, you can overdo it, but let's just show an extreme example so you get the idea and see what how powerful this can be. So there's our right, and there's our left. And let's bypass them. So I'd always say when you're boosting things within an equalizer, especially in a mastering process, you don't want to be going over 4 or 5 dB. If you find yourself doing that, just go back to the mix. So I'm happy with that. We've got 100 hertz popping through. We've got the snare kind of getting that more boxy sound, which I like, around 200 hertz. We've taken out a bit of the sort of mud, so to speak, the dead region that's not really needed. And we've just added some width between 5 and 10K, which is where the hi-hats and where all the breaks energy is. Just sort of like that sort of sugar and sheen that we like. Just bringing that out, widening it a little bit, and leaving the rest of the program material intact. So finally, around this region here, around between 2 and 5K, is the breakbeat. So the breakbeat has lots of stereo information. It's an old breakbeat from years and years and years ago. And because I've retained all the stereo information, I want to bring more of the sides out. So here around 1K to about 5, you can see here there's a bit of a dip where I can bring more out of it. So what I want to do is, because of the breakbeat is kind of in there, and it's an old breakbeat from years ago and it has lots of stereo information, I want to bring up more of the sides. So I want to bring up more of the sides just to make it come out of the mix a bit more, which will really affect the master. So the great thing about this, again, frequency EQ, is the many modes that it has per node. I can go to mid-side, so I'll go right across to mid-side, and then that means, for instance, I can either bring up the mids or the sides of just this particular frequency range. And let's have a listen. Let's do the mids and let's do the sides. There's the mids. Here's the sides. That's what we want. So we want to bring up more of that energy from the breaks, the air, the sort of percussion element to that breakbeat. And that's what this is great for. So within that little region of that frequency range, I can literally just affect the sides within that node and again, leave the rest of the program material intact. So you can really dig in there. It works surgically. It works for correcting stuff. Obviously, it's great for doing what I've just done here, bringing up the sides, but you can also bring up the mid if you need to. But for this particular track, I wanted to bring more of that breakbeat out, more of the percussion element. And within that range, I did that with the sides. I'm really happy with that now. So let's do a before and let's do an after. Now lots of the boxiness, all the beats are getting a bit bigger. This is great. And because I'm not really boosting the low end, I'm not affecting the subs, which I don't need to because they were happy with them on the mix phase. And any other things that are in the mix, the strings, the stabs, all that kind of stuff, not really affecting too much of that. We're literally targeting on the frequencies that we need, which is like the kicks, the snares, and the sort of air and stereo information of the breaks. So quite happy with this so far. Again, you can overdo it when you do this phase of the equalizer. I would always say, again, go for transparency. So frequency EQ is very, very, very transparent. But we have loads of EQs in Cubase as well that you could use. We're going to show Studio EQ later on in this chain. Okay, so third up in the chain is my favorite plugin in Cubase, full stop, which is the Multiband Envelope Shaper. This came in Cubase 8.5, if I'm not mistaken. I absolutely love this because you can do so much with it. It's great on breakbeats, it's great on mastering, it's great on drum buses, you know, anything percussive. It really, really works well. Again, for another video, we'll show this in depth. But for in a mastering scenario, it's great to be able to actually just give yourself some transients back. So just say, for instance, the mix was really overpowering and you had to just go in a bit more on the compressor. You had to control things a little bit more. So you might have lost some dynamics, you might have lost some of the snare pop, you might have lost a bit of the kick. And the reason why I would put the Multiband Envelope Shaper third, it means that after our equalizer, where we sweeten things and we're still not happy, we can then start putting transients back that might have been missing. So this is great. I wouldn't go across every single module within this. Again, it's across the 2020 spectrum, but I would only use one or two modules. So I'm going to take off the bass module, I'm going to take off the tops because we've already dealt with the top end region. We've opened it up sonically with frequency EQ and we've added some boost there. And the bottom end, I wouldn't really mess around with the bottom end at all. But you can zero in on that if you choose to. I wouldn't go there. I'm only concentrating on the mid-range and the high mid. So what I want to do there is literally just push through some of the transients back. Just get them popping up a bit more. And again, let's show an extreme example, just show you what this thing can really do. This is an amazing plugin for getting that punch and dynamics and really attacking the transients. So again, we can solo it. So we can solo it so we know exactly what we're doing. Let's take the solo off. So this is great. If I use the release, I can even open it up more. So I wouldn't do this on a mastering phase. It's great for more like breakbeats, for adding more air and reverb and really expanding a track that might be quite lifeless, or even a drum break that might be quite stale. You want it to kind of get a bit more air in there without actually adding a reverb plugin. We can actually impart more width and space to it. So it's great for that. For a mastering phase, no. But for the mid-range, it's great. I can attack some more mid in the low mids and the high mids. So you can really hear the hats really cutting through now. So we don't want to overdo it. Let's do before and after. So So really happy with that. Again, I could spend a video on this on the Multiband envelope shaper. It's my favourite plugin within Cubase. So there you go. And we're going to go into our fourth in the chain, which is the Imager plugin, which is one of our recent additions. This is also a great tool for mastering. And you can see the kind of theme that we have here. You have full control over the full frequency range. We have full customizable bars where we can zero in and concentrate on what we need to attack. And I kind of like this concept. I think it's great for being able to choose where you want to work within rather than just being set with one range that you can only deal within. So this is great to be able to say, okay, I know what to deal with the 100 hertz region or the low mids or the mids or the highs. So the great thing about Imager is that I can say, okay, 100 hertz, roughly 100 hertz, I want to make everything mono. So first things first, it gives you a nice analysis of every single frequency range, which is obviously colored by these bars. So you can see already, because in the mix phase, we were kind of making things more mono and stuff like that. It's not too much information in there, but there is information in there. There is stereo information. So as a rule of thumb, for mixing and then eventual mastering, I would say maybe keep all your stuff under 100 hertz more mono. Some people don't, but I would say for the instance of, you know, vinyl, for instance, vinyl mastering, you kind of want them frequencies to be concentrated so you're not getting a bad cut of the vinyl. Again, that can be for another video. But also, it keeps things tidy. So when you've got like a sub and kick in the same region there, you kind of want them doing a certain frequency range and nothing else. You don't want no stereo information in there. You don't want no reverbs down there at all. And if you do have reverb and it's hitting down there, this is a great way to be able to actually take that out of there by using the width knob and just making it mono. And the great thing that we can actually impart width and spatial stuff and visually see it within this one plugin makes this a really killer plugin for me. We're not going to go too mad on all the other modules. Literally going to do a bit of width here and the highs and the bit of the high mid, and that's about it. So and again, I can solo it. Nice little bass. And now I can just make it mono. And you can see it change there. Now here, I've got these headphones on here, so you might have to have a nice system at home to listen to this properly or some good headphones. But you can kind of hear it get a bit messy now with that width, and that's what you don't want in that region. So when I make it mono, it gets tidier. If I do it on the low mids, you can hear it opening up more. Now it's more mono. So we can kind of get away with that in our low mids. We can open that up a bit more, but in our 100 hertz region, kind of want it mono. It's tidier. You get a great mix and eventual master. Keeps things less cluttered, more headroom, more loudness, better mix down, better master. Okay, so next we go into saturation. So I have racks of gear here with all the saturation stuff and valve units and tape stuff and that, but I think this is a really great in-the-box edition that kind of have that similar sound. It's very, very close, and it's been there for quite a long time. I think it came in Cubase 5, if I'm not mistaken, and I love it. It's called the Tube. Really simple. I love the fact we have a parallel slider, so we can do parallel processing, so we can choose to impart how much saturation, harmonics, and distortion we add to the overall mix and master. Of course, you can overdo it. And then we have the drive knob. So the drive will be how much we're going to overdrive into this valve, which will light up and look like a valve. Trust me, I have valve stuff here. It's the same kind of concept. As it gets more driven, the valve changes colour and actually imparts that harmonics and saturation that's needed. So this is great. So let's turn the mix fader down, take the drive down, and then let's start doing it as we go along. That's an extreme example again to show you. So we're obviously going to dial it right back and just gives ourselves that little bit of extra flavour where you hear the sort of low end have a sort of 3D depth, the lows to low mids, and that's kind of what we want, saturation. It doesn't have to sound like it's distorting going through a guitar sim. You just want to add that slight little bit of harmonics which gives you your flavour, your sound. Obviously each type of compressor or EQ that you put into the Tube plugin will have a certain type of flavour. And of course, each program material is different, and each value that you're boosting within the mix will actually also have an effect on that. and of course how much you're going to mix it by with the parallel slider. So let's bring it right back down again and just mix the taste. Great. And if you find yourself going down a cul-de-sac, down an avenue, and it's getting too loud and everything's just getting a bit too much, remember you always have an output fader within the plugin, which is great to sort of rebalance things as well. And of course you have the output fader as well. So keep your eye on both. So I'm really happy with that. It sounds great. Now, finally is a limiter, and it's really simple. Literally the limiter will give you now the safety net of not clipping within the box, because nobody wants digital distortion, especially not in a mastering phase. And this gives you the safety net of being able to say, okay, I can't go over 0, I can't clip. It gives you a ceiling that the whole mix and master will eventually go through. So again, our stock one is great. It's had a few revisions and a few GUI refreshes and a few frequency response changes. I think it's great for what it does. It's really transparent and it just works. So we want it in the very last slot, and that is going to be the last one out of the chain in Cubase. So this is where the signal flow will actually end, and it goes with the limiter, and that then will control the fader. So if I turn the limiter on, and then I turn it up the fader, I can't clip it, I can't go over. Let's have a look. So the limiter gives you that safety net, it gives you that ceiling that you can then drive into. So I would always say it's got to be a transparent limiter for this reason. If you have a coloured one, then you're going to get saturation and you're going to get limiting, and then you can actually get a much harsher and crushed up sound. So it's there as a safety net. Obviously, I'm not going to drive into it like that. It's just show you an extreme example. But we also have input and output control in this as well. So it's fully customizable to be able to do that. You're not just stuck with the limiter on what do we do. It actually has options so you can control stuff as well. Okay. Again, when you're A and Bing with a limiter, you shouldn't really be hearing any difference because it's not really there, it's not really doing anything. It's just stopping things. For instance, if a whoosh came in or something like that, or a drum roll came in really loud and heavy, the limiter will give you that option there of not clipping. It's a safety net that just covers your back, really. Okay, so finally, Supervision, a quick look at that. Again, we have loads of videos on this. You know, it's amazing to be able to have a full analysis suite within Cubase Pro, and this is great for being able to see absolutely anything sonically that you can within audio. So as you can see here, we can see time, we can see spectral bars, we can check out ambisonics, we can see the waves, we can see the loudness. It's amazing. It's fully customizable and it's fully resizable as well. So because we have multi-monitor support, you could actually choose to maybe impart this to another monitor and then get just an analysis monitor, which a lot of people do. I also love the fact that we can have timestamp on here as well. So this is my custom window. I get to see the panorama, the LU meters. I can get to see true peak. I can get to see the timestamp. And more importantly, I can see the loudness as well. So this master's kind of like a general master. It's more for like a, you know, club car, maybe a store, whatever. It's just for a demo here. So if I wanted to do a master, for instance, for a digital store or a streaming platform, I have the option here. I have the option to be able to go into the loudness and check out all that analysis for that. Just double click on it. Get a whole window now dedicated to loudness, which is great. So the LUFS system. What I'm going to concentrate on here in this mix and master is the integrated value. So let's have a listen. And I can see there, it gives me a snapshot of the integrated loudness. Obviously, this is changing all the time, these values, but I get an idea of where that might work. And I can see my true peak. Short term, I can give me a snapshot of a few milliseconds ahead and see what that might be for any sort of peaks that come in throughout the track. It's great to be able to see all this within one window. And of course, it's customizable like everything in Cubase. We can actually choose our own references and our own targeted regions if we're going for a certain platform or a streaming platform or store or anything like that. And we can set our own integrated loudness markers to build from. So there you go, that's Supervision. Again, it goes much deeper. Check out the videos on our channel. Absolutely love this plugin. It's becoming absolutely invaluable for me as far as mixing and mastering is concerned. And let's listen to this chain now, before and after, and you can hear what's been done within this chain. And remember, we're going to give away this project as well. go. That sounds quite fat. We get the beats popping out, nice mid-range. It's got a nice bit of spatial energy going on, nice power as well, and it's controlled. Also, if you look at the fader as well, you can see there's not much volume being added as well. So we're not really adding much volume to what's been done, because obviously we're gain staging throughout the mastering as well as the mix, as well as the plugins. It also helps having the output faders and input faders to be able to control certain plugins within this chain. So there you go, that's our chain. Of course, you can add plugins and take plugins away and add what you need to. It's just an idea to show you how you can master within Cubase Pro, get a nice fat sound. We're not adding too much volume. It's also ready for kind of like the club. It's also ready for maybe streaming and platforms, all that kind of stuff as well. And it's a great starting point. And you can maybe use this as well, because we're going to give away the project. So it's a nice way to show you some tips and tricks and how you might want to work in the future as well. So there you go.
So there you go. That was the 4-part series. It's been epic. Thanks for all watching. Hopefully you learned more about now Cubase's stock instruments and plugins, the power of Cubase, obviously. For drum and bass, it's absolutely amazing. It's an amazing tool for drum and bass. The MIDI, the instruments, the effects, the techniques that you can use, the content that we have involved, you know, so it's all in there, from mixing to mastering to layering to chopping to crafting bass sounds to making big vocal chains, lifting vocals, you know. Hopefully you enjoyed this series, and until next time, thanks for your attention. See you later. Bye.